Today, we got the new head coach of Iowa men's basketball, Ben McCullum, joins us on today's Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Joined today by Ben McCullum, the new head coach for the Iowa basketball team, as he makes his way through his first summer in Iowa City as the head coach. Of course, I did a little bit growing up. Coach, good to see you again once today. Introductory press conference. We talked on the radio one time, but now seeing you in person, good to see you.
Yeah, great to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, it is a busy time for you. Evaluation periods happening here in July. You got the AAU circuit. I know you and your staff have been all across the country here looking for the future of Iowa basketball. When we go from the open evaluation back in spring, you get the job, hit the ground running, putting a class together. I mean, have you had a moment to breathe yet? Or have you had that moment where you can just sit back and say, man, I'm the head coach of the Hawkeyes?
No, I don't think I've breathed in about a year and a half, so close to a year. So, no, you just kind of get to the next thing. You just work, and that's the nature of this profession. Is the second you relax too much, somebody else is passing you. So, we just work. The only surreal moment was probably like the fight song. When that was played for my introduction, it was like, wow, that's what I used to listen to as a kid, and then we were out at the lake the other day and we were playing catch with an Iowa football, and it's like, no, we are the Hawkeyes. So there's like a few strange things that happen like that, but other than that, it's just work, business as usual, and we've got a good group, and we're working hard, so it's been fun.
You mentioned, I mentioned the evaluation period that's happening. And I guess we're going to start with a little recruiting here, as that's the time of year that you're definitely going through. Went through summer workouts with the group and all those things. But you're going after a different caliber of player now. The relationships are not as embedded as maybe, some other coaches that have been on the scene for a while, that have been in the Big Ten or at the power forward level lately. Are you playing catch up at all? Or is it just, hey, let's get these relationships going? How quick can you do that and maintain and build the relationships with different prospects?
Yeah, you do play a little bit of catch up. I think it's more just the scene itself, where you're in one scene, which is the Division II scene, then you're in the mid major, and then obviously you're in the Power Five scene as well, the high major scene. And so you just have to work a little bit harder to catch up, and then once you catch up, then you're in that. Even at Drake, probably took us about 5-6 months to really catch up, and to get our feet underneath of us, and know all the places we need to go, and know all the prospects, and then know all the coaches associated with that. So we're still doing that. You just have to go out a little bit more. You have to call a few more people, that sort of thing. But outside of that, it's not shockingly different.
Speaking of recruiting, want to go to the latest Hawkeye and Trey Thompson, kind of the most newsiest item here, at least recently, on that front. A kid that reclassifies, a guy that you had to create a relationship very quickly with. Now, before we kind of get into Trey a little bit, I want to go here. So you guys had a media availability a couple weeks beforehand. You're talking about, we're still looking. We can look at Euros. You threw reclassify in there. Are you going to throw us those little crumbs all the time? Is that something that, me as a provocateur, that I need to be listening to those press conferences a little bit closer, because every once in a while, maybe you might be sprinkling some things in there for us to keep our eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I was that prophetic, but yeah, no, we just that's just what you have to look for at that point. I mean, there's a few maybe still left in the portal. There's some international prospects, and then obviously, then there's the reclassification, which you've seen teams do. A lot of that is if they're emotionally mature enough to be able to handle it, and come to this level, and then obviously the physicality of it as well. So, we would prefer high school kids anyway, not always. But I just think for us, the way we're going to build it is with mostly high school kids, and not all of them. We do like some transfers, and so when you have the opportunity to get somebody of his caliber, I think you need to make sure that you take it.
Trey as a prospect, power forward? Is that what you guys look him at? And just positionally as a whole, I think I've heard you say in the past, you don't look at it 1 through 5, that kind of thing, but kind of how he fits. And is it a guy that you believe, even as someone that should be a high school senior, that's going to be able to help the team right away this year?
Yeah, it's really whatever team, whatever kids can guard. And so for him specifically, you know, I call them. I just kind of created my own name for his type of position. It's more of like a hybrid where they're not really a big and they're not really a point guard, and so they're kind of right in between all of that. And because they can post, but yet he can play on the perimeter, dribble, shoot, pass. He can shoot on the move. He can do so many things, and then he can also trigger offense, meaning he can get to the next action very, very quickly because he's a high processor. So, I think he's physically ready. Obviously, you still got to build your body, a little bit more, and then emotionally, I think he'll be able to handle the rigors of the Big Ten. And he's a good basketball player. He doesn't necessarily have to come in day one and average 25 points. He can come in and play off of people for a little bit, learn how to trigger the offense, get himself going, and make himself a lot better player than he would have in high school.
Saw a clip of him playing against Iowa United, and a big guy over there. I know you can't talk about him, but yeah, he held his own in that one, and that was definitely an eye opener for me of being able to handle somebody like that. Well, as we're talking about the youngsters, let's dig in a little bit more. Now, I got to go to Trev next. So I don't know, Coach, if you remember, called a lot of your son's games, Waukee Northwest, and a lot of Valley games, as I do high school basketball here in the radio in Central Iowa, and I saw Trev over the last 3 years, probably 25 times in person. So I've seen a ton of him. I believe he's a guy that can help right away. Your guys' thoughts and being committed to you and I, making that phone call and trying to get him to flip to become a Hawkeye. Take us into the process of the West Des Moines Valley product.
Yeah, so I thought that when we recruited him at Drake. I just thought, and he committed so early, and then I think he went out to Peach Jam and played really well. But at that point he had been committed to UNI, and I think it's fairly decently documented that it was his number one school all along was the University of Iowa. That's where he wanted to be, outside of UNI, and so then he chose UNI because that was the scholarship that he had, and they did a great job of recruiting him. And Ben, Coach Jacobson is awesome, and their whole staff is excellent. And so, fast forward, I saw him throughout the year. I think he grew an inch or two, and we ended up getting this job, and I took kind of a big risk by calling his coach with nothing, and just saying, hey, I'd like to just talk to Iowa. That's the only school I really want to talk to. If they say no, I'd still like to come to UNI. Is my understanding as to how it went, but I'm not totally sure. And ended up calling. We made sure he had his release, and then the rest is history. And then he came here. I do think he can play. Just because of his skill set, his ability to pass. He's got great size, his physicality. He's catching up. Defensively, I think that's going to be the hardest thing. Just trying to find a way defensively to be up in coverage, where in the past he's been back in coverage. Just some of those things in ball screen coverage and stuff like that. But smart kid, great kid. Not surprising, but you would be surprised at how hard he works. Because usually 6'11". 250, 255, whatever he is, it's difficult for those guys to just come in with an extreme work ethic, and he's got that. He works hard, so we're definitely excited about him. I'm going to love coaching him for the next few years.
Great family too, and got to know the family throughout the years, and really excited to see Trevin Yerock playing for the Hawkeyes coming up this year. What other freshman is Tate Sage? And this is a guy we kept waiting, right? Because looked like he was going to deep commit for Drake, follow you along, and we're just waiting for that press release, and we're waiting, and it finally happens. He's kind of been that buzz guy, open practices that the media's been able to be a part of. His name continues to come up. Tell us a little bit about Tate and your expectation for him, a guy that certainly has got the size and the shooting ability to be an impact player.
Yeah, no, I mean 6'7", but probably guess 6'6.5". It can really shoot it. Knows how to play off people, meaning I think in high school he averaged maybe 13, 14 points, and it was good basketball, not great basketball. And so you're like, well, you should average 25 if you're at the Power 5 level, but that really wasn't his, like, that's not his niche. I mean, his is his ability to pass and play with other really, really good players and play off of him. So as he translates levels, his role doesn't shockingly change. And so he's able to adapt very, very quickly. Very smart, just a smart, high IQ basketball player that can really shoot it, and finish at the rim. A lot more athletic than you would assume, than you would think. And so he's had a good summer so far. He had one of his better days, I think, 3, 4 days ago, and then didn't have his best day yesterday. So we're still a freshman, still a work in progress, but we're getting him there.
Finally, your son Peyton, and when it happened, the decision that Peyton was going to join you, there were a lot of people that were upset. It had nothing to do with you or Peyton. It was just kind of the scar tissue that had been built up with coaches' kids throughout the last few years at the University of Iowa. Before that, you being a Hawkeye fan, even before you became a Hawkeye coach, I'm sure you knew the back history behind it. Take us in a little bit of the decision and knowing that it was going to rankle some people.
Yeah, I think at this level, and this is the benefit, and I've said this in other interviews, the benefit of me being at Division II for quite a while is I was able to make decisions, and you would have some repercussions from it, and you'd have some people that were upset. It wouldn't be as shocking as it is this level. So I've gotten pretty good at paying attention to enough to make sure that we're trending the right direction, but not paying attention to where it impacts your ability to make the decision you need to make. And so, specific to him, not all instances are the same. And I think as a society, we try to create that where he took his son and it didn't work out, and he took his son and it did work out, and whatever it may be. Specific to Peyton, right now he's not our hardest worker. He's one of, he's probably close to our hardest worker. Him, maybe Bennett's in there quite a bit. And just from a toughness, from a defensive perspective, going against Bennett every day, he's been fantastic. Attitude wise, already knows exactly what to expect. I think he's our second leading plus minus guy, meaning, I think Bennett's our best in regards to plus minus, and Peyton's our second best right now. So he's been doing good. Going into the decision, he was going to play for us at Drake, and I think, and had some kind of low major stuff, but ended up, it's like, well, I'll just go play for my dad, and that sounds like a fun deal. And so he'll really help our culture. He'll really impact that in a lot of ways, and he's just got to keep working, keep fighting, and find his niche.
You mentioned Bennett Sturts, and obviously his decision to come with you from Drake, I think, changes the equation for this team, and the expectation level, not just here in the state of Iowa, but both regionally and nationally, raises up with him. Seeing him pop up on those draft boards already for next year, and another guy that continues to kind of be a summer buzz guy, it feels like, in that circle. Getting Bennett to come along with you, and the ability that he could have been in the open market, maybe one of the highest paid players in college basketball next season. How you brought him along and where you are as he kind of leads this team in year number one.
Yeah, it's not very difficult to bring him along. Both spots was just a probably 10-second conversation, and that was that. Uh, yeah, I mean, with him, he's just developed so well, and he's kept that edge, that hunger that he wants, that he has. Even just not being recruited to any Division 1s, and so I mean, he didn't have a single Division 1 offer, and he had a lot of schools come in to watch him. And that goes for a lot of the kids that we brought to Drake with us, and then they won 31 games. And so, with him, I think as long as he keeps progressing the way that he is, I think that even in the NBA, he's almost a better player in the NBA just because of the space, and they actually call fouls. Whereas, it's in college, it's just such a physical game. Not that the NBA is not super physical, but they're gonna call more fouls because they want more offense and et cetera. And so he's as good a kid, and even probably a better kid than he is a player. He's in here every morning, Right now he's shooting right now, and that's 2 hours before practice. And so, he's worked at it. Hopefully he'll be really good for us, and obviously kind of lead the way in regards to just his ability to play make.
I'm excited about this season for a number of reasons. And I think number one is my expectation level as a fan when I take my media hat off is bringing that group of guys with you from Drake, where so many times at year number one, not only are you trying to figure out how the pieces all come together, but you're also creating that culture. And you've been such a culture coach. People talking about you back in your days in Northwest Missouri State, this past season at Drake. Culture is such a huge part of it. You got that core group of guys that know exactly how you want to play. How much easier do you believe it's going to be? And well, you really went through it a year ago at Drake, so you kind of are able to hit the ground running that way. Just knowing so many guys in this program know the way that you want them to play.
Yeah, I think it's a big advantage, and we learned that at Drake, and we didn't know what was going to happen. To be perfectly honest, I mean, we brought those guys in, and we knew Bennett obviously was going to be plenty good enough to play at that level. Isaiah, Dan, and Mitch, even they would probably say the same. Like, well, do you think I can play at this level? Do you think we can win at this level? So when we brought them in, it was like, we're here to establish some culture. We're here to build for the long haul, and I'd love for you to be a part of it and take this challenge on. Well, then we realized, just a scrimmage in, it was like, it's not that like the top end players at Division II could have played at the mid-major level. And we kind of realized that pretty quickly. But on top of that, they know the system so well. And at this level, very few teams have system guys. They don't have guys in their program for very long. And so it's very difficult to get them going early in the season. And it's also difficult for them to have a level of relentlessness and toughness to them, just because the program doesn't mean as much because they're there for however long. So to answer your question, kind of fast forward to this year, same concept. One, we did want guys with, I guess, corporate knowledge, as they would say, because it does speed the process up drastically. The second part of that is if you look at some of the better teams in the country, even Florida, for instance, where they had a lot of mid-major talent, and then they had some good high school kids. They won the national championship with it. The benefit with us is we took our mid-major talent from a 31 win team. But because it's our team or was our team, it doesn't seem as cool, right? And so, but they're a 31 win team. They know the system, and we took them here. And so we're pretty excited about that, and excited to be able to get them to get our program going a lot quicker, so that we can establish that culture, so that we can continue it for the future and have continued success.
Non-conference schedule. We haven't got the release yet with everything on there. We know most of the schedule at this point in time. First, how close are you to finalizing the non-conference schedule? And then secondly, how do you get into it? I heard you talking numbers. I'm a numbers guy myself. And so I got a little excited there. I don't want to say gaming the system because that has a negative connotation, but there is a system in place, and we've seen a lot of programs be able to do that to manipulate the net in a different way. So take us into the two parts of that.
Yeah, a schedule. We still have, I think we've got one more to go. They had quite a bit scheduled, not quite a bit. I guess they had the pattern of the schedule out, and so we ran into a few things with our MTE that we're trying to fix. And anyway, long story there, but you're trying to make it your own schedule while continuing with the schedule that was already in place. And so it's been a little bit tricky, but scheduling and recruiting are probably the two trickiest things at this level, just getting your schedule right and trying to predict the future, essentially. Um, it's tough. I almost wish that, I almost wish that you would just be not even forced, but you'd have to play a certain amount of power fives, meaning, just like you can schedule all power five and it not necessarily hurt against you, work against you. I'd almost prefer that. I think it's just better that way. Coming from a mid-major, of course. But I do like the fact that you do get those upsets, and you're able, like we were really fortunate to be able to play K-State. We were fortunate to play in the Charleston Classic, and I think that does help college basketball quite a bit. So I understand it. So then, how do you then make an NCAA tournament? I don't know. It probably changes year to year depending upon who they want in the NCAA tournament, right? And so usually it's been quad ones, and that's what they go off of. You see the little thing, quad one wins, and
Mhm.
last year it said quad one, quad two wins, which didn't make a lot of sense. All of a sudden it's changed the formula, and so then you're going off of your net ranking. So how do you impact the net? Well, net does have a component where you have to beat teams by a certain amount of points. So um, then on top of all that, you need to make sure that your team has some confidence going in. So like when we were at Northwest Missouri State, when we used to schedule, we would schedule a couple NAIA teams to make sure that we could get everybody in the game, to make sure that we could build some of our confidence and work on things that you wouldn't necessarily use against a top five Division II team. And so threw a lot at you there. Um,
Love it.
so there's no like clean formula. I know that I get a lot of people get upset about us not playing Drake or you and I, which I totally get, because I loved playing K-State, and it was awesome and stuff like that. Um, I think if it eventually gets to where those games benefit you quite a bit, we would certainly love to play those games, and from a net ranking, from an NCAA tournament, from that thing. So it's scheduling's tricky, and there's a lot that goes into it.
Final thing, we'll get you out on this. Speaking of, you mentioned the MTE. You guys are in this year. You and I is also involved in that one. We'll see how the schedule shakes out there. However, Maui, a place that Iowa hasn't been in a long time. I think last time they were out there was with Woodbury and Gasell and that group that was out there. Great Alaska Shootout used to be a big thing, as you know, growing up in the 90s as I did, when Chris Kingsbury was knocking down threes against Duke and UConn. When it comes to the MTEs, you got the Players Era Festival that is happening again in Vegas for year number 2. That's also a financial component. Maui, some of the bigger tournaments, heading down to the Battle for Atlantis, those kind of things. Is that something that's at the forefront, something that you're thinking about when it is putting together those non-conference schedules going forward?
Yeah, it is. I'm curious as to see where MTEs go, because I don't think we're forced to next year. I might be mistaken on that, but I need to confirm that. And I think we bounced out to, what is it, 32 games at this point?
Yep.
And so, yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, and so we're trying to piece that together and figure that out before we schedule. I would love to play in those deals. I love to play really good teams. I love to play Power Five competition for the most part, as long as it benefits you. I think that's the tricky part is, if they could adjust the schedules to where it's just like, no, you're playing the schedule. That I'd almost prefer that, like just give you the schedule to start. But those events are fun for fans, for coaches. All you're doing is watching film in a hotel with overlooking the ocean. It's about the only difference. But the fans love it. I think the players like it, probably don't love it, just because you don't really get to enjoy it as much. But those are some things that we're going to make sure that we look at in the future.
Well, Coach, really appreciate your time today. A lot of great information and getting us excited for Iowa basketball coming up in the 2025-26 season. Enjoy all the events all around the country, and we'll be talking to you again soon. And I believe we're going to be hearing you again soon here, as you guys have some media availability later today.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot for having me. You coming up here for it?
I got my radio show. right in the time.
Gotcha.
I got to talk to James. We got to move that thing around so I can
get
make my
James
way over.
right.
That's
get
right.
him dialed in.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, Coach.
All right. Thanks, Trent.
Thanks again to head coach Ben McCullum joining us here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Great stuff out of him. Tons of great information, a lot of non-conference talk, which I really enjoy. And I think you everyday listeners certainly know that about me. We continue on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Time to take a look at Iowa football as we continue. We're back with more in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Ever wonder what your seat's going to look like before you buy it? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. What I love about the Gametime app, the prices you see is a price you pay. No more surprise fees. All of a sudden, that ticket price is double what it is. Not the case with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets and concert and show tickets, all with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Trent kind of back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. So a quick peek here at Iowa football. We're going to dive in on tomorrow's show, the roster changes for 2026. We're going to get into the guys that have gained weight, how much bigger they got, guys that lost weight. There's a couple of those also, and we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. A big thanks again to Ben McCullum for joining us here today. And the information that he was able to give us on the freshmen coming in, I thought was really good. And some of the thought process behind what they're doing as it pertains to the scheduling of basketball is going to be really, really good. But yesterday, when we were going through it and talking about the rankings from EA Sports and have a little bit of fun with it, yes, it's just a video game. It doesn't mean anything, certainly in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult to play with the Hawkeyes if you're playing online, but that's a different conversation. But I went back to the quarterback. We talked about Mark Gronowski. I thought his rating was pretty low. Thought it was going to be higher for him. Who cares, right? It's one group of people's opinion that put the game together. And Hank Brown listed as the backup. And then third was Jeremy Hecklinski. And I had a conversation last week with somebody off the record, but they were talking about Hecklinski and that there's a chance. Now, you start with the size. He's listed at 5'11". He's not a big guy. But for whatever reason, my mind started to turn a little bit to Drew Tate, an undersized guy. Was not as tall as he was listed. And yet, what an impact player, obviously, that he was. Back up as a true freshman, 3 years as a starter, and high-level performances that we saw from Drew Tate. And that's not to put this that Jeremy Hecklinski is going to be the next Drew Tate, but it just got the wheels turning. When I was talking to that person, I brought up the comp. Is that a fair one? Said he doesn't have the same kind of pocket presence because the pocket presence for Drew Tate was unlike anything that Iowa quarterback has seen in a really long time. Just his ability to feel that pressure, to spin out of it, that is incredibly difficult to replicate. But they said that's a pretty apt comparison and something that they can see. Still a lot of work to do developmentally, but it sounds like Tim Lester likes him. Hank Brown, I still believe, is going to be the backup this year. But if you believe that it's going to be a slam dunk, no doubt about it, that Hank Brown is going to be the guy in 2026, Hecklinski's a guy just to keep an eye on. Wanted to throw that out there for you. And a little nugget here to wrap things up. Thanks again to Ben McCullum for joining us today. Talking about the freshmen a lot. I think you'll all get a lot out of that one. And thanks for his time on I know a busy day. As he mentioned, Bennett Sturts was already in there getting his shots up and getting ready to go. And we'll have some media availability, and I'm sure more is going to come out of that coming up with Coach later today. We, as mentioned, we'll talk some Iowa football. We'll talk about whatever comes out of the open media availability. We'll do that on tomorrow's podcast. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Network. I'm Trent Condon. I've been in the radio here in the state of Iowa, on the radio for the state of Iowa for the last 20 years, talking Hawkeyes and a little bit more. You can hear me on the Iowa Sports Radio Network, and also you can catch me each weekday from noon to 2, KXNO in Des Moines, over in Sioux City on 620, 800 KXIC in Iowa City, on the FM dial, 95.7 in Cedar Rapids, and over in the Quad Cities as well, each weekday from noon to 2. That will do it for us today. We'll be back with you tomorrow. As always, go Hawks.